And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He is Aaron McIntyre. And then, of course, the most important part of the program is all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. You can look for me as well on platforms that aren't actively trying to snuff us out and censor us by going to MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter. And then, of course, you can get clips of the show free to watch and free of censorship as well at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. And as always, remember, the last name is DEACE. The first part of today's program brought to you by my glasses, because I want to begin today by bringing you glad tidings of great joy. If you, like me, have one of those problematic, I prefer to use that P word other than the official term, which is progressive, because I really don't want to be identified with that term in any way, shape, or form. But the official term is that I need progressive lenses because, like a lot of you, we stare at these screens all day long in this world we live in, and now I'm a little far and I'm a little nearsighted as a result. The problem used to be with those progressive lenses, though, that you had to get the really dorky frames to go with those. Not anymore, because of our friends over at Better Spectacles. They can get you hooked up with some of those phenomenal Rodenstock eyewear frames, German engineered, 144-year-old company, now being imported for wide distribution here in the U.S. That's what I'm wearing right now, are Rodenstock frames with my problematic prescription. So, hey, if you've got an everyday prescription you want to get filled, they can hook you up with one of those. But if you now want to get the cool frames that the regular prescription people used to only be able to get, but now you can as well. You can do that with our friends over at Better Spectacles and their best trained opticians in the country when you go to betterspectacles.com/Steve. And while you're there, get 61% off those Ghost Spec lenses, and they throw in these Rodenstock frames for free. Heck of an introductory offer when you go to betterspectacles.com/Steve. All right, coming up on the show today, Corey DeAngelis will join us. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about my weekend trip to North Carolina yesterday. I could not believe, I've never seen more school board candidate yard signs in my life than what I saw throughout the state of North Carolina over the weekend. I mean, they were everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And so, are we finally starting to get it? We'll talk to Corey DeAngelis, because him and Chris Rufo, those are those two guys that have kind of been on the front lines of this battle, kind of the trend setters in this area. And so Corey will join us coming up here at the bottom of the hour for an update on that. And then next hour, a conversation that I know a lot of you are looking forward to, as am I. We are going to combine Fake News or Not and Pop Culture Tuesday into 1 hour-long discussion, which is a breakdown of the new Dinesh D'Souza documentary, 2000 Mules. So I will first go through my own kind of stream of consciousness thoughts live in real time as I watched it on Sunday night. I'll go through those with all of you and share those, and then we'll discuss as a group. Todd and Aaron, on purpose, I did not ask them to watch this. And the reason why is because I wanted to put them in your shoes in the audience and get their reaction from my analysis and what they thought from there. All right. So we will be having that conversation coming up for the entirety of the second hour today. But before we get to all of that and more, let us begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by the Pennsylvania Primary. The Real Clear Politics average for the GOP Senate primary has Trump-endorsed lefty Mehmet Oz holding a 2.6-point lead. The latest poll included in the average is one more from the Trafalgar Group, which shows Oz ahead by 2 points over Kathy Barnette, about 29-27. Businessman David McCormick is in third at 22 points. Another example of how unhinged Trump's orbit has become in attacking Kathy Barnette. Last night, Sean Hannity criticized the candidate for being among those peaceful protesters who marched at the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. Here's one more reminder about who Mehmet Oz really is.
The real Mehmet Oz.
Senator Clinton, one of the smartest people I've ever met.
Dr. Fauci is too, but he's a very disciplined leader. He's a wonderful scientist.
We need to work with China.
and I love working in China. Challenging your beliefs about what it means to be male or female. How do we keep guns out of the wrong person's hands? The greatest national security threat that we have is obesity. And we haven't had any interaction with President Trump at all.
Mehmet Oz, a complete and total fraud.
Polls close in the Keystone State, 8 p.m. Eastern Time this evening. Moving on, another record broken in the Biden era. There were over 234,000 illegal aliens encountered on the nation's southern border in April. That's the highest single-month number in Department of Homeland Security history. Over 117,000 of them were released into the country. Last month, 113,000 were removed. Elon Musk's deal to purchase Twitter could be in jeopardy. The deal was placed on hold after Musk's camp demanded proof of Twitter's claim that less than 5% of its user base is made up of bots, automated accounts that post spam and/or artificially increase account following and engagement. Basically, if the percentage is significantly larger than 5%, the deal would be repriced in favor of Musk. If the percentage of bots on the platform is much more, like over 50%, then that could mean the end of Twitter, as its value would become basically nil. Project Veritas went undercover with a senior engineer for Twitter about reaction within the company to Musk's takeover.
What do your colleagues say about it?
They hate it. Oh my god, I'm at least okay with it, but some of my colleagues are super left.
What do they say?
They're like, this will be my last day if it happens. Twitter does not ruin free speech.
What do you mean?
Doing free speech. Capitalists, if we weren't really operating in a capitalist mode, we were very socialist. We're all communist. Ideologically, it does not make sense, because we're actually censoring the right, not the left. Because everyone on the right wing will be like, bro, it's okay to say, just gotta tolerate it. The left will be like, no, I'm not gonna tolerate it. I need it censored, or else I'm not gonna be on the platform. So it does serve the right. It's true. There is a bias.
Speaking of Musk, he was asked in an interview yesterday about the job Joe Biden is doing.
Man, it's hard to tell what Biden's doing, to be totally frank. I feel like
it's weekend at Bernie's.
The real president is whoever controls the teleprompter. It's like the path to power is the path to the teleprompter. If somebody would accidentally lean on the teleprompter, it's going to be like Anchorman. It's going to be like QQQ ASDF 123.
The gunman who entered a Southern California church on Sunday and opened fire, killing one, has been revealed to be a Chinese immigrant, a supporter of the Chinese Communist Party with a vendetta against Taiwanese people. The church in question has a majority Taiwanese congregation. Congressman Eric Swalwell tweets, "My 4-year-old just FaceTimed me to ask what I'm doing to help the people in Buffalo, and why did the bad man do this? Absolutely gutting. This cannot be normal. It's time to ban assault weapons." Live Action showed up at a pro-baby killing rally recently when this happened.
Do you believe in abortion after birth? Would you support that?
I believe in whatever the woman wants to choose to do, that's her choice.
At any point of the child's life?
At any point of the lady's life, that's her choice.
To kill another person's body?
It's going to always be her choice.
Even after the baby's born?
It's always her choice.
So if they're 2 years old?
It's always her choice.
I can kill my 2-year-old?
It's a woman's right to choose.
To kill their child at any point.
It's a woman's right to choose.
And finally, how to get along with people in the year 2022. Here's JP Sears.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello, Atticus.
I'm looking forward to this conversation, which I'm sure will be civil.
Of course it will. I mean, it's 2022. It's not like we're barbaric cavemen who can't get along with each other.
I'm sorry. Why does it have to be cavemen?
Because there were a lot of cavemen roaming the earth.
Did it again. I'm just curious why you feel the need to genderize an entire Paleolithic era of hue people. Why does it have to be cavemen? That's very uninclusive.
I'm not being uninclusive.
Yes, you are. There were just as many cave women, cave trans men, cave trans women, cave Zer, cave Zix, cave Zem, and cave they roaming the earth millions of years ago.
Oh, you think the earth is millions of years old? Try about 6,000. Read the Bible.
Read the Bible? All the words that those cis straight men wrote down, that is just made up garbage. If you want to know what's really going on, you'll watch the real Bible, which is CNN.
And that's what happened while we were away.
It's funny because it's true. Aaron's montage brought to you by Scoremaster. If you are in the market right now for a new car loan or a new home loan or a refi or a business loan, I don't know if you guys have noticed right now, but the economy's not doing all that great. So make sure you get the absolute best rate you can possibly get with our friends over at Scoremaster, where the average user can raise their score about 60 points in 3 weeks just by knowing what's up. Not just knowing your score. I mean, the credit bureaus will tell you that now, but they often won't walk you through why you have the score you have very transparently and make it accessible information for you, so that then they can also give you a plan for how to get to the score you want. But that's exactly what Scoremaster does. I've used this service myself, helped me with my home refi last fall. And if you want to see if they can help you, just go to scoremaster.com/Steve. That's scoremaster.com/Steve. See how many plus points that you can add to your score, and then decide from there if you want to sign up at scoremaster.com/Steve. All right, coming up in today's overtime, we're going to get into what's going on with Twitter, and because I know most of you aren't on Twitter, because unlike us, you want to remain sane. But I think you need to understand that there is no more powerful platform in the United States of America right now than Twitter. And this has been true for several years. This is where more news gets hatched, gets buried, more narratives, more agendas, more opinions get disseminated, perpetuated, squashed, more a place than any other. Remember when Rush used to talk about doing LexisNexis searches on the air, going through the archives of what the media was talking about? Remember those days, right? Okay. Remember the days when you and I worked in a newsroom and we'd go comb through the AP wire there in the Des Moines Register newsroom? This is what this is now. Twitter is the new Nexus search. Twitter's the old AP wire. That's what it is. And so even if you're not on because you want to remain sane, I promise you a good bit of news, whether it's from the right, left, or another cosmic dimension, is filtered through the funnel of Twitter. So we will discuss what's going on and the results that continue to be revealed from Elon Musk's attempt to take it over. We'll get into that today in the overtime at blazetv.com/Deace. That's blazetv.com/Deace. There is a lot of great, phenomenal stuff in Aaron's montage today. But if you two don't mind, there is something I want to address here at the top of the program that I am concerned about. Okay? And I want to address it with a disclaimer. Number one, this is just strictly my opinion. Todd and Aaron are welcome to their own, and I have no intention of, I don't speak for the management here or anything else. I just speak for me, Steve Deace. Okay? Number two, I don't have really any intellectual respect for Sean Hannity at all. Like none, and haven't for the majority of my career. Never understood the value of his show or really anything he does. So I don't really take seriously what he's doing in the Pennsylvania Senate primary because I don't take him seriously. And this and to me, that the only thing that he has a chance of doing long-term damage to is his own audience. Okay? What he's doing in that primary or attempting to do is just good old-fashioned, I want my guy to win douchery, right? That's a tale as old as time. That's not going to do anything to alter the future or the trajectory or of what we're trying to accomplish. If Hannity were to do irreparable damage to a portion of his own audience because of these antics and never recovered, would there not be, there's 10,000 other people waiting in line to do the exact same form of hackery, correct?
Yes, for sure.
So that's why we haven't really, other than just some snide comments, I've not seriously discussed them because I don't take him seriously. But I do take Mark Levin very seriously. Mark has been very kind to endorse several of my books, including the one that is the best I'll ever write, that is about to be released as a movie at some point here, probably in the next 6 to 9 months. He's endorsed several of my books, had us on when several others shunned us a year ago with Fauci and Bargan and didn't want to address the things that we were bringing up. And when we're talking about being shunned, we're not talking about like CNN and MSNBC. We're talking about our own people, right?
Yeah.
Mark did have me on. Mark intellectually is one of the few people in this realm whose intellect I take seriously. Whether I always agree or don't, I take his intellect seriously. And it's a small list, like Newt, Shapiro, Levin. It's a small list of people who, when I'm about to go on or have them on, I'm like, all right, better eat my Wheaties this morning. Now, I can't wing this one because I'm the one that has to keep up in the conversation. And I do think when he says something that I'm concerned about, it has far more ramifications for what we're all trying to accomplish here than just, Hannity trying to, gerrymander a Senate primary in a ham-fisted, clumsy way that is alienating almost everybody. And I saw it this morning with this tweet. It's important to send someone, this is from Mark's official Twitter account. It's important to send someone to the U.S. Senate that can win. And Kathy Barnette's derogatory comments about gays and Muslims won't win a general election. Now, I don't have a clue if Mark has endorsed someone else in the race. I went back through his Twitter feed to find out. And it seems maybe he might be somewhat favorable to McCormick. I didn't find anything in his Twitter feed going back over a week that addressed Dr. Oz at all, including all of the various revelations that have come out about what he really believes and has gone on the record on his grifty TV show saying over the years. And Jack Posobiec gets a lot of the credit for exposing that because he's the one that has done the yeoman's work on that front. I've not endorsed a candidate in that race. I don't endorse almost any candidates at all anymore, even though you guys ask me to all the time. I didn't know what a Kathy Barnette was 2 weeks ago. I had no idea. And I only found out because of the bold pro-life testimony of her own campaign video and then her standing up to Dr. Oz, who until about 10 minutes ago was pro-baby killing his entire life, until he miraculously converted trying to run for Senate. A lot of that going around, as Tom Tancredo used to say during the Iowa caucuses, trust those conversions on the road to Damascus, not the road to Des Moines, right? Okay, a lot of those primary season conversions tend to happen. Everybody gets religion during those periods of time, right? So when she confronted him and said, hey, you'd have been fine with me never being alive. You'd have been fine with me being killed. And that kind of catapulted her campaign. Had we ever discussed Kathy Barnette whatsoever? Did we even know who was even running other than Oz in the U.S. Senate primary?
No.
I know a lot of you think I've heard that this McCormick guy has World Economic Forum ties or something. I don't know the answer. You guys keep emailing me that stuff. I've not even looked at it because to me, Oz is Mitt Romney without the business accomplishments. Like Romney's actually done legitimate success in the business world. All Dr. Oz has done, as our friend Tim Young likes to say, is a grifty TV show. That's all he's done his whole life. And on that TV show, he argued in 2018 for public health to declare gun violence a public health emergency because, that's pretty pro-Second Amendment, right? Mm. Yeah, your self-defense is now a public health emergency. That's pretty Second Amendment-y, right? He was out there 10 years ago promoting trans surgeries for children years before I even knew when most of you even know what these things were. And now suddenly we're told that he's changed his mind on all of these things. That's what drew my interest to this primary is I just believe that's a scam and it's a lie. And I believe that Donald Trump endorsed him because of his weaknesses. And Trump thought, hey, I can at least Stefanik this guy, get him elected, and he'll just do what I say. And if the guy gets elected, let's hope Trump is right. Because that didn't work when he endorsed Mitt Romney. Okay? But I am concerned, if you put that tweet back up there again, Aaron, I'm concerned about this messaging, and here is why. Because Mark Levin should be taken seriously intellectually. And the arguments he makes and the way that he frames them matter a lot more, and I think to a lot more people, and should, than what Sean Hannity says. And this tweet, at the very least, implies, and that's why I feel as a Christian I have an obligation to speak up for a sister here. I can't sit here and be angered at Amy Coney Barrett when she leaves her Christian sister, Barronelle Stutzman, on the side of the road. Remember that? How angry that made me?
Yes.
I can't, and I thought you had an obligation to hear her case and defend her, and she did not. And I can't sit here and say, well, I disagree with this if it's said on another platform, and then pretend like if it's something that I think is a threat to what I believe and it's said by somebody on my platform, that would make me the same kind of thing that we often criticize on the show, right? So I'm going to make myself uncomfortable as well as everybody else by addressing this, because I think it needs to be done for the integrity of the show. And then I secondly, and most importantly, think it needs to be done in defense of the Christian faith. This at least implies, in my view, and if you think I'm wrong, you guys tell me. But it at least implies, in my view, that if you hold to biblically orthodox positions on false religions and immoral behaviors, you're not electable, or at least not in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I find this interesting because from everybody I know who knows both candidates, Mastriano, who's expected to win the gubernatorial primary tonight going away, has pretty much all the same views. So I don't know why this doesn't apply to him, but it applies to the black woman. I find that kind of odd and weird, but okay. Now, maybe those things she could have said them better. But suppose if Kathy Barnette said, I'm a Christian, I believe in the Bible, and while I respect Islam, I don't believe that the Quran is revelation. If I did, I'd be a Muslim. So I believe the Bible is revelation, and so I'm a Christian. I'm sure the next day the Philadelphia Inquirer would all tell us. If she becomes in fact, fast forward to tomorrow, if she becomes the GOP nominee, I'm sure the Philadelphia Inquirer will run a series of stories and all the local news media telling us how respectful the tone and tenor of her disagreements with Islam happen to be. This is a Christian that you can do business with, that you can accommodate and live with. I'm sure they would do this, correct, guys? That's because the tone was just so good. Of course not. So it doesn't matter to me with the tone of arguments. And frankly, for two guys like Mark and I that have been known to scream a lot into a microphone, I don't know that we're the ones that ought to be worried about anybody's tone and how they frame things on any level, number two. Number three, we just had a Republican win the state of Pennsylvania for the first time since 1988, and I believe won it for a second time since 1988 in the last election before they stole it from him. Was he known to say an incendiary thing or two about literally everything, like everything, right?
Yes.
In fact, the reason why I so vehemently opposed Trump all the way to the convention floor as part of the Free the Delegates movement, I was part of that. I helped organize it. The reason why I opposed that all the way to the convention floor is because I thought those incendiary things, remember we had these conversations on this show back in those days. We were going to say all these incendiary things and then lose ground in the culture that, and then he was going to lose the election anyway by doing this. And so we would then be left with the mess of cleaning that up, right?
Yes.
Is that not the conversations we had on this show?
Many
that
times.
Trump would say all these incendiary things and then he would lose because of it. And then we would be the ones after he kind of goes back off, and does what guys who lose elections do and resume their normal lives. We're the ones now left holding the baggage, the considerable baggage of saying these incendiary things and losing, right? That was one of the prime arguments I made against his candidacy, correct?
Right.
And they got proven 100%, if not 10,000% existentially wrong, all right? Thankfully, he didn't lose doing that and was able to appoint the justices that overturned Roe. And so I went from 2016 doing everything I could possibly do with everyone I possibly knew, trying to stop him from getting this nomination, to throughout the year of 2020 during the COVID lockdowns, I felt like I was trying harder to get him reelected than he was. Because he proved we actually can say incendiary things. And often, if we're all being honest with each other, Trump's incendiary things were really not about things that were as serious than who is God, what is truth, what is real, what is moral, what is not. They were often about frivolous, stupid stuff or stuff in his personal life or his personal grievances. Not about things of true existential consequence. And I just feel like I just can't sit here and let it be said that if you are a Christian and you publicly hold views that align with 2,000 years of scripture and tradition on religious orthodoxy, on who is God and who is not, and what God expects from us and what he does not, and what is moral and what is not. And if you voice those things, could we all say them better? Folks, I do this for a living, and I might be pretty good at it. I'm probably not Mark Levin good, especially if you look at the total amount of listeners and book sales, but I'm at least somewhat good at it. Could we go through might be able to do it with what I'm doing right now. Could we go through every single episode I've ever done and find a way that I could have said something better than I actually did? Sure, because we're human. But if we have not yet learned the lesson in the era that we live in, that there is no way for the spirit of the age that we're up against, the spirit of the age that wants to keep choking those children out in Pennsylvania and everywhere else, and keep jabbing away with experimental, ineffective, dangerous jabs in Pennsylvania and everywhere else, and not have a border. Did you hear the numbers from the border that Aaron had? And not know what a gender is. This is the state that gave us something called Rachel Levine, guys. Came from this state of Pennsylvania. If there's any election in any state that needs to hear what the Bible has to say about who is God and who is not, and what is moral and what is not, dare I say, it might be the state that gave us Richard Levine. They need to hear it more than maybe any other state, with the possible exception of California. They have a man accepting Woman of the Year accommodations in the Biden administration as we speak. Oh, I think the electorate in Pennsylvania needs to hear this stuff, chapter and verse, quite a bit, actually. And if that's not true, and if that's not what we're doing here, and let's just get elected Republicans, let's get more Lisa Murkowski's elected. Let's get more Richard Burrs elected. Let's get more Arlen Specters elected, because then we'll have 51, 52. To what end? To just be told we can't do anything, can't stand for anything? That is not why I got into this line of work. And I absolutely and summarily disagree that you can't get elected in this country. And if it's true, then we're all wasting our time anyway talking politics, and pretty much all should be getting thee to a nunnery. So it is electable to belong to the World Economic Forum. That's electable. It's electable to be a transhumanist grifter, or that's electable, but it's not electable to be honest about what the Bible says about the character and identity of God and the character that therefore he asks and demands of us. I don't believe that. And I believe the success of our show, frankly, and our unwillingness to take our light and hide it under a bushel and lead instead with a biblical worldview, I think it disproves that notion. So I don't care what Sean Hannity does from now until the cows come home with his douchery and hatchery and antics on his show. But I do care greatly when somebody I look up to and respect, someone whose approval I have sought, asking for someone to endorse your work is a matter of seeking their approval. I don't go and look for endorsements on my books from people who have a platform lower than mine, who have a stature lower than mine, but higher, to at least hint that you can't be honest about your faith and get elected in Pennsylvania. I just categorically disagree with that. And I just think that needed to be said. More in a moment. I know more and more parents are looking for education options to help their kids Dunkirk out of the government indoctrination system. One of the best I know of, because I know the people who started it firsthand, because we were in the trenches together in the previous decade fighting back against Common Core. And I had my own son enrolled in this online academy. I can't give it a better endorsement than had my own child in there. I mean, no offense to all of you. I love him a little bit more than all of you, as much as we love you guys. So what am I talking about? Freedom Project Academy. That's where you want to go right now, and spots are filling up fast. So that's why you want to go to Freedom for School, FOR, Freedom for School, and get a free information packet right now as soon as possible to see what your options might be for the fall, if it indeed includes Freedom Project Academy, where your child will learn mastery of subject matter, not spirit of the age propaganda, how to think, not what to think. In fact, they are encouraged to critically think there and think and learn how to think for themselves. So check it out. freedomforschool.com. That's Freedom for School, FOR, freedomforschool.com. Welcome back to the program, Corey DeAngelis. He has been one of those kind of blazing the trail after so many years here in the non-communist America. We just put it on autopilot where the schools are concerned. But in the last couple of years, there's been a renewed focus and vigor. And Corey, it's good to have you back, first of all. And secondly, I was just doing several speaking engagements in the state of North Carolina over the weekend. And I got to tell you, I mean, I spent about 3 hours in the car driving that state, and I was blown away by the amount of school board election signs I saw in the state of North Carolina. Where's our energy level at where this is concerned right now?
Parents are taking the driver's seat, and they're pushing back, especially after the past couple of years where the teachers unions overplayed their hand and awakened a sleeping giant. These parents who just want more of a say in their kids' education. We called 2021 the year of school choice. 19 states expanded or enacted programs to fund students as opposed to systems, and support for school choice is at an all-time high, with the latest Real Clear Opinion Research polling finding about an 8 percentage point jump in support for school choice since April of 2020, from 64% to about 72% support of Americans supporting school choice. So this is the silver lining of the COVID era.
So are we then seeing the people who claim or want to represent us, are they responding accordingly? What kind of gains are we seeing from a policy perspective across the country? Or since it is the political class, that's probably a lagging indicator, I would imagine.
Yeah, so like I said, in 2021, there was huge expansion of school choice. We called it the year of school choice. 19 states expanding these types of programs. In 2022, we saw over 30 states with bills introduced to fund students as opposed to the government school buildings. And most of those states had something called an education savings account introduced, where the money that would have followed you to the government-run school, you could still take it. If you like your public school, you could take it to the public school. But if not, that funding would follow you to a savings account that you could use for private school tuition and fees, micro schooling, tutoring, curriculum, or any other instructional materials. And so far this year, it looks like we're on track to see some victories as well. South Carolina, for example, both chambers have passed an education savings account program bill, a state that doesn't have an ESA yet. We saw Tennessee expand their education savings account program. Iowa's still in the mix. Virginia's House of Delegates passed an education savings account program this year. It has stalled in the Senate since. Arizona, on the other hand, their Senate has passed a huge expansion of education savings account programs this year, but we're not sure if it will pass the House yet in Arizona. So there's still a lot going on here in 2022, and we'll give you an update on the show once we finalize all the numbers. But there's elections coming up as well. We saw in Virginia, the anti-parent rhetoric backfired on Terry. I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. McAuliffe and Glenn Youngkin was victorious in a state that went 10 percentage points to Biden just the year before, and all indications suggest that the election was won on the issue of education. This anti-parent stance, this it takes the village approach that your kids belong to the government or the government-run schools and the money meant for educating your kid belongs to those institutions. It's backfiring, particularly on the Democratic Party. And politicians from all parties, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, would be wise to listen to this new special interest group, parents, going forward, because it's a deeply unpopular belief to suggest that the kids belong to the government when they obviously don't.
What's prompted them to come out and just say those sorts of things out loud that shows like mine said for the last 10, 15 years to our audiences? That's what they really believe. But now they just say these quiet parts out loud. What's prompted or provoked that? Is it because that when you take a more principled opposition to this stuff, you sort of take away the ground shrinks beneath their feet and they're kind of left without a fig leaf to cover the nakedness there, other than just to now just really blurt out what they've really thought all along? Or is it something else?
Yeah, I think there's two explanations for this. One is that all along they've talked about these things at the bar or with their friends on the weekends who may be extremely progressive, and they might just encourage that kind of behavior and beliefs. And when they say the quiet part out loud in the public, though, it backfires on them because it actually turns out to not be a popular belief. Most families don't believe that their kids belong to the government, and most people in particular don't believe that as either. But the other issue is that a lot of politicians are in a lose-lose situation right now, particularly politicians who are over-reliant on campaign contributions from the teachers' unions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they come out against parental rights in education, like we saw with Terry McAuliffe, well, at least the teachers' unions aren't going to be as mad at him, or similar politicians. But if they come out for parental rights in education, well, then the teachers' unions who, look, over 90, in the 2022 election cycle, 99.99%, I'm not making that up, of the campaign contributions from the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten's union, have gone to the Democrats as opposed to Republicans or independents so far in the 2022 cycle. So that's hard to get out of that situation. It's a power issue rather than a logic issue in some cases.
And the efficacy of what you just said is further confirmed in that we are seeing this happen in other issues. For example, on the life issue, the kind of stuff, again, that we told you they really thought or really meant and was really behind the Planned Parenthood propaganda, that they said we were nuts and extremists, and they just actually are proposing that legislation now. Yeah, I mean, after the kid's born, sure, whenever, because when you go after the premise of their arguments, which has been a frustration of mine in the 15 years I have worked full-time in politics and conservative activism or within alternative media, we have just rarely attacked the premise of their argument and then allowed them to come back with the camouflaged argument that's followed by, and you're a racist, misogynist, xenophobic, homophobe for daring to even ask. By attacking the premise of their argument now, they now have to defend their premise, and that includes being honest about what it is. And I think a lot of Americans are seeing the honesty of the premises of their arguments full-throated for the very first time, and that's why you're seeing things like more school board election signs in North Carolina than maybe they've ever seen before. Now, there is something, though, that is on the backside of this. And you mentioned Iowa was one of the battlegrounds you were looking at policy-wise. Just to remind you, that's where I live. And our studios actually are from suburban Des Moines as you and I speak. One of the things I'm told from sources I have down at the State House is that, ironically, it is some of the reddest rural counties and districts in our state that want to stop this from happening, because essentially the high school sports team and everything else, that's basically the identity of the team or of the county, of the district. A lot of jobs go there. There's a fear that if kids could go anywhere they want, well, why do I want to go to school at Applington-Parkersburg, which has a great football tradition in small-town Iowa, when I can go to a vaunted West Des Moines Dowling and might get more attention and notice from college recruiters, and what that would do to, the various rural communities in the state. And then they'll say, besides all that stuff you guys, you city slickers and suburbanites are concerned about, we don't let that into our schools anyway, so we don't have anything to worry about. What's your response to that line of thinking, Corey? And have you seen this elsewhere?
I mean, it's the same argument that the Democrats repeat. It's the teachers union argument that you might hurt our already underfunded public schools. But the reality is, if your public schools are doing such a great job in the rural areas, well, then they're not going to lose any money at all. If your student stays there, they still get the per pupil funding associated with that kid. And even if the kid does leave for whatever reason, the public schools actually financially benefit on a per pupil basis, because only the state funding follows the child to the private school. The government-run schools get to keep all the local and all the federal dollars. So mathematically, they must end up with higher per pupil revenues and expenditures. And look, this is a Republican Party platform issue in Iowa and nationally as well, explicitly in the party platform. So if you're going to call yourself a conservative or a Republican, you should support educational freedom. And look, it shouldn't matter what your background is. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. Democrats should support it as well, because this is an equalizer. It leads to more competition. A lot of people who oppose school choice for K through 12, they support the GI Bill for veterans and the Pell Grant for low-income students for college. They support it with in Iowa. There's the Iowa Tuition Grant Program that you can use to take quote unquote public money to private religious universities. Iowa also has a pre-K program where the money can follow the child to a public money to a private religious provider of pre-K services. So let's apply that same logic to K through 12 education and fund students, not systems.
And the fact that those precedents exist means we have a proof of concept already about whether those fears or talking points come to fruition. And then on top of that, I mean, so your grand strategy for the future of American culture is, hey, we are able, which isn't true if you look at, you're using a lot of the same textbooks too, by the way, but I'll grant your point. We are able to create this private little Idaho here in rural Iowa or rural so-and-so, but then we're going to send our kids off into the great big cities where, since we didn't defund these unions and mechanisms, they're totally and completely outnumbered by folks who got completely and totally indoctrinated by that system. And so that accomplished what? Right? You see where I'm going with that? I mean, I don't understand how it's not to everybody's benefit, if you're a non-communist, to want to see the system and structure that is funding this indoctrination completely and totally deconstructed.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's another reason to allow families to sort to institutions that align with their values. And then at the same time, there's a systemic response, competitive response, that if the families can take their money to the education provider they're choosing, the public schools in different areas would have an incentive not to focus on curriculum that is divisive and upsets families. They'll be more likely to focus on the basics, math, writing, and reading. And so then it'll be a win-win solution for the families themselves, and then also for the kids who remain in the public schools to actually get a good education as opposed to indoctrination.
Great stuff, Corey. How can people follow the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at DeAngelis Corey. But also, if you want to help us in the fight for education freedom, you can go to educationfreedompledge.com.
Great stuff. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate the work you guys do. Keep it up, all right? Take care.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You bet. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends, and it's a good bookend, at Alliance Defending Freedom, reminding you that parents do have a fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children. But of course, this right is under attack from the Randy Weingartens and others of this world who want to make sure and are hell-bent on indoctrinating your kids instead. And that is exactly why you want to stand by a organization that has a trusted long-term resume of defending parental rights all the way up to the Supreme Court. And they do it with all their clients pro bono, which means they pay the bills with donations from folks like us. Of course, I'm talking about our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. We got a policy on this show. I'll never make a direct ask for you to donate to something if I've not donated to it myself, and I have given and donated to Alliance Defending Freedom because of the kind of work that we're talking about here. And if you would like to make a tax-deductible donation as well, head over to the website, adflegal.org/Steve, and you can make it there. adflegal.org/Steve. That's adflegal.org/Steve. Thoughts on the conversation we just had with Corey DeAngelis?
Well, this Iowa thing really bugs me as it applies to the rural Republicans. This is what I'm talking about yesterday. The first question and Ask Me Anything about when will people understand breadbasket issues? Well, they won't care about them if they see you can be so easily taken advantage in other very fundamental areas. And in terms of education right now, the teachers union is a hostage video. They have a gun to your child's head and they say, what are you going to do about it? And you always blink. You can't do that and have anybody care about any of your other issues. And I don't know why this is complicated. If you will not defend your own children, game over on every single issue you care about. And the sports team concerns don't cut it.
Yeah, just quickly on that, I don't understand who exactly, and at least around where I grew up, which was rural Iowa, small town Iowa, I don't really see how it's feasible to travel an hour or 45 minutes. Some people do just out of necessity, but I don't really see how it's feasible to have 2 hours of commuting to school every day, but maybe that's just a false objection. One thing quickly, when it comes to watching the way people work within this sphere of politics, Chris Rufo and Corey DeAngelis. It is just a constant
master's
drip,
level
drip,
class.
Drip, drip, drip. I remember back when a few weeks ago when the Florida legislature passed that bill spanking Disney. The news hadn't even been like an hour old yet, and Rufo was out there tweeting about some crazy teacher somewhere, basically the next target, which is just when you want a model for how to do the drip, drip, dip of politics and moving people, those two are ones to follow. And then one other thing as well. Why have we seen the reactions from the left essentially saying, we own your children, they're ours? Why are we seeing that? It's quite simple. It's never been provoked to this level before. It's never been provoked.
Completely agree.
They have not been forced to confront some of the craziness within their own ranks, and that's why they don't have talking points ready. That's why they're going and telling you the truth. They think that they own your kids. That's why they're saying that.
When we come back, can we get to the truth of what happened in the 2020 election? A new documentary claims to do just that. We will spend the hour discussing Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules here in just a few moments.